ahead and start. We're live on Facebook, and this is for the Community Development Block Grant meeting for 2024, our first hearing. The Redevelopment Authority administers the CDBG, that's short for Community Development Block Grant, for the city of Uniontown. And we hold this meeting annually and welcome citizens' comment, input, and projects. So there's a few things that we need to be sure to get out to the public, and so I've put those in an agenda to get information out to you. So the purpose of today's meeting is to have a public hearing to discuss the CDBG program in general and the needs of Uniontown city and the city's performance under previous CDBG projects, future CDBG projects, and planning projects, and also to discuss the 3-year community development plan. So what is CDBG? CDBG program supports community development activities, and there could be several different projects that are eligible. Some examples are water and sewer line replacements, improvements, housing rehabilitation, construction of affordable housing, reconstruction of public community facilities, recreation facilities, public services, removal of architectural barriers, code enforcement, economic development, acquisition and relocation, blight removal, and actually much, much more. It just all depends on the eligibility of the project. And today we'll collect project requests. I've brought project request form with me tonight, and it's also available online for those that would like to submit a project. I encourage you to submit a project request form regardless if you think that it's eligible for CDBG funds or not. Even if you don't even have a plan, these project request forms are really important to prioritize projects and know where the needs are in the city. So fill one out and we can take a look. Now I will describe the 3 requirements for the CDBG program, but I don't want this to discourage project requests because there's many other grant funds and many other opportunities to bring in funding to fund development projects. So the CDBG program must address 3 national objectives. The low to moderate income benefit, so it must benefit low to moderate income persons. 2 is removal of slum or blight, just aid in the prevention of removing the slum and blight. And then 3, urgent need, which is a particular urgency. We don't have a lot of that. If there was natural disasters, or maybe if we were flooded really bad, that could count. But it's very uncommon that we use it for urgent need. We generally in Uniontown are addressing low to moderate income populations and slum and blight. It doesn't have to have both. But again, not to discourage, please submit any project requests. So where does this money come from? This is federal funding that Housing and Urban Development administers. It's outlined in the budget each year, and for our program, we receive it from Pennsylvania. So, because of the size of our population, for instance, Washington County, they have a direct contract with HUD. We don't. We have a contract with the state. So the state has sub-grantees, and we're one of those sub-grantees. We usually receive around $300,000 in the year. How is that determined? It's a formula basis. So Act 179 formula is used. It's based off population, and 70% of these funds must be used for LMI activities. So you could have more than one project on it each year, just as long as it's focused and has 70% spending. So around $300,000, and this is our first hearing to bring in some projects. So, and also comment on previous projects. So I just have to share some of our previous projects with you. Oh, I'm gonna be doing this by memory. Okay, I got this. So the past 10 years, we worked on street construction, paving, emergency equipment, park rehabilitation, homeowner rehabilitation, sewer improvements, code enforcement, parks, and public service. So that's some of our projects. If you're interested in knowing any project specifics for previous years, you can contact our office, go online, uniontownredevelopment.com, And we have the projects available. I even post our projects to our Facebook page, and I review them at council meetings on the first Thursday of each month. Now, that's our previous use of funds. Any comments, we can receive those. Now, our current CDBG program, as I mentioned, I go to city council meetings. I provide a quick glance spreadsheet is what I call it, and it basically outlines our contracts to date. The way these CDBG funds are supposed to work is you get the funding in 1 year, you apply in October, and you usually get the contracts in March of the following year. And then at that time you can start your planning, and then you have 3 years to use the funding. In a perfect world, that is how you would do that, and most of your projects will stagger. By stagger, I mean each bidding project, each construction would be staggered throughout the years. It's not like that currently under this program. There was a rather large modification that just took place where we modified 3 different years of funding, the largest modification I've ever done, doing this for about 10 years, and it was a doozy, I can tell you. But we were able to spin the program around and save over $300,000 to $400,000 in allocating it, changing the use of funds, and we changed it to serve these needs. Lemon Street Playground, and that project is complete. We're finishing up some signage, and that project will be finished. Demolition projects to include 80 and 82 Lemon Street, 55 Lenox, 84 Murray, 39 Winona, and also 96 Murray. Bidding is underway for those projects. Code enforcement time allocations for delivery costs. We're working with code enforcement to fund the salary of the full-time code enforcement officers to enforce our codes. And one of the newer projects, Calvary United Methodist Playground. Currently, we're executing sub-recipient agreements with Calvary, where the Redevelopment Authority will take ownership of the property and work with the community so we can have a playground and basketball court in East End on Clark Avenue. Grant Street ADA restrooms and pavilion project. Bidding's going to start. Just got word back today. Engineering has started, and we hope to open bids and get the bids awarded early July. State Theater external rehabilitation. I don't know if you've driven by and saw the large pieces of metal flying off the roof, but we have funding now, and we're going to address some of those issues. That also is going to be bid out early July. And then One Voice, One Community, that's not a construction project, that's a tutoring program. So One Voice, One Community has a tutoring program, and this will fund their teachers, or they call them coaches, and provide them after school learning and tutoring during the school year. So that is our existing programs right now. And I also want, and then I just want to back up. All of these projects were just recently modified. So we have about 4 that's going to be bid out in the next 2 months. And it's going to be really challenging for the Redevelopment Authority. So I hope that everyone understands that these projects are funded with federal funds. We just discussed HUD. HUD funding and federal funds require many different requirements. I would love to be able just to take a checkbook and go out and start tearing houses down, but you just can't do that with these funds. It's a long process, and honestly, even though it's that long, I get it, and I'm getting it, but it just takes time. So we appreciate patience with some of the demolitions around and the rest of the bidding on the other projects. So now, this particular application, 18% of the funds would be used towards administering the programs. Our deadline is sometime in October. They've not actually announced the amount of funds, but it's usually around $300,000. It's been $300,000. And our second meeting is tentatively scheduled September 5th, which I would pair up with a council meeting. And at City Council in October would make the decision on how the funding is used. So I have a couple projects to review for the 3-year community development plan, which we also can accept comments on, and then I can be done talking. And while I pull this out, I wanted to let everyone know that we had good word back this afternoon. Another grant that the Redevelopment Authority recently had written was awarded $125,000 to be used towards blight removal in the city, and we just got the award back today. So let's tear stuff down. So some of the projects that we have on the 3-year plan is Calvary United Methodist Church. They will stay on the 3-year plan in the case that they would want to apply for more funding. They basically get in line. You make a request on the project and you get online, and over the next 6 months we vet your project, we check eligibility, and we iron it out, and we have about 3 projects that we're able to solidify on the 3-year plan. So Calvary is one of those. One Voice, One Community for other tutoring. Marshall Park project, which is a second phase of a project that we recently submitted for Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program. This would install a stage and some other different landscaping and things there that the Greenways to Trails and Recreation Program does not fund. Grant Street park renovations would remain a project request in the situation that they would have other funds to multi-year. And State Theater also stays on that list. Over the next 6 months, if we vet out this project, it could still be considered in the running. And those are previous submissions that still exist. And then we have one new submission this year, which is One Voice, One Community for Colick Park. The Terry Vassar is proposing different amenities for that park that would align with a science park, a science play environment. And it's very interesting. It really has a double purpose, and that would include making sure everything was ADA accessible, seesaws, different equipment for that park, but it does have a science-focused STEM. So that is all the projects right now. Before others want to announce or make comment for their projects, is there any questions related to the administration of the program or anything like that before we start talking about other projects? Sometimes I have them on there, but I didn't see any. Okay, so I guess at this time we have a 3-minute limit. Anybody that wants to share a project or talk about project feasibility, they can take a mic or go up to the table there that has a mic and make the request, or take a project request form with you.
So I do have a recommendation for a project. So this kind of goes in with, green space. I think it'd be a good idea if we do a future plan for a community greenhouse. We do community gardens, but I think a community greenhouse, all brought through with volunteerism, but I do think that would be, it would work hand in hand in the areas that are blighted areas that we're raising the houses. An idea I think would be a very positive influence and drive in the area here. That's something I would like to see. Also, I would like to just say I also I had a moment to talk to Mr. Vassar on this idea that he had. And also, it's a great project, and I would urge support under that, for that project as well. But in addition, into the rotation of ideas, I would like to see a community greenhouse, something that is a permanent structure, which would go with the structure, and also the, for the, in the winter time, the winter season, the cold season, that it would also have, capabilities to heat that building, so we could, produce all year round. And I think that would, also go hand in hand with community action in, with the food bank, and also with what the previous state rep has also done with the community in the community garden. I just think this would be a better place that, you could actually produce, food for, a number of food for the local population.
That's interesting. I know that we ourselves, the Redevelopment Authority, have 2 community gardens, and that's what they're called right now. But unfortunately, at the time that those were put together, it was a great partnership, but that has faded away. So the Redevelopment Authority has many properties, and over the past 6 months, we've put together a marketing plan for these properties, and we are going to start marketing some of these properties. So it'd be interesting, but those community gardens could be the location for a community greenhouse, maybe.
I would also like to see something go towards our homeless crisis that we have in this community. Right now we have our shelters, but they close during the day, midday. I would like to see something to where there's a shelter of some sort that will help educate our homeless people, that will help our homeless people get on their feet in life, but have somewhere to go during the day instead of hanging out at Five Corners or on the Rotary Walk or wherever it is. I would like to see our homeless community be supported a little better in the city of Uniontown.
Now I have a follow-up question with that. All of our region is experiencing homelessness, and I'm just curious to know if there's any other nonprofits or other agencies that is doing something similar that could do more with funding. Because, and again, not to discourage projects, there's all types of projects we can do, and as the city, we would love to be a pass-through. We would love to partner and work with other agencies that would be doing those things, and we could administer the grant funding to pass it down. Because if we were to write that grant, who's going to actually do the activity? So if there are anyone listening or any other agencies that are doing that, that would be interested in a plan like that, I think that it would be great. It would be a great partnership. Trace. I know you have a couple projects in the head of yours.
Way to put me on the spot.
No.
I mean, I guess I have a lot of ideas, but I mean, I don't really know if it's really gonna take place. But I belong to a Mon Valley Art Center in Brownsville and multiple other locations, as you're well aware. It's a nonprofit that focuses on arts and instrumental music. And I know that we're trying to bring that to Uniontown, and we're trying to see how we can get some allocated funding for it as well. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
That was the one. That was the one I was hoping to hear. I think that we have a few phone calls set up and vet out the project and fill out the project request form and see what kind of, because there's others with the interest.
Right.
There is a nonprofit with the interest to do that. So it would be a, I mean, it could be. But again, all these projects go onto a list, and City Council reviews all of them in October, and we see where we go from there. Any questions specifically on the projects that was discussed in the previous use of funds and existing use of funds? We have a comment. It should be for children and adults who struggle with reading. And I did comment that it would be really great if there was, again, a nonprofit that was doing that we could support, and they could provide some reading services. Definitely. We encourage nonprofits. They have other sources of funds as well. So CDBG really could be considered for like a gap funding source. If they just need a little bit more, it closes the gap. It's really nice to pair with some other projects, make a more substantial project. And the other comment is fruit trees at Marshall Park. Isn't that happening already? Yeah. Well, we're on it. Well, if we have no other comments, I'll just reiterate. We will have our submission in October, and we will review these projects that are all on the table and present them with scoring rubric to the city. The scoring rubric considers a few different things. It considers how advanced your project is, what environmental issues could or could not be there, the amount of commitment that you put into the project, which could be actual physical commitment or funding commitments. And there's some other scoring criteria that's used. So we review them all, score them all. We have a meeting with City Council. They review those and they make their public decision at the meeting in September. And now let's say later you are like, oh man, I should have said that, because you're not saying it now. Online, you could get the project request form, and comments are open until July 15th of 2024. And you could submit for a CDBG project anytime you would like. But to be considered for this year's application, you have to submit by July 15th. If there's no other questions, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Yep, it'll be uploaded online now that we've had the meeting. So maybe just tomorrow at some point, yeah, check it out. And I'll publish it on Facebook when it goes live.